And it has started. Ludwig, while I present, will you let people in the meeting?
Yeah.
Good. So everyone, welcome to the Dynamics Meetup for June 2023. We have an agenda today. Welcome, and then we have a session from Murray and from Luca. And I think you decided, Murray, you go first. And then we have a little information about the next meetup. We have time to, yeah. Did you say anything? No, okay. We have time to discuss if there's anything. And yes, the Orga team, as always, is Jørgen, who is not with us as he is probably attending the keynote in Dublin right now. And then Ludwig, do you want to present yourself?
Well, I'm doing the same as Lone, working as technical specialist in Germany for Microsoft.
Yes, and yeah, I'm doing the same thing and has been doing the meetups in almost 2 years now with Ludwig and Jørgen. So we have some meeting rules to follow because we are not here for work. We are actually here for fun because we like the product so much. So just make sure you put in constructive comments. We are here to learn from each other and just to have a good time together. Yes, first we have Murray, who will tell us about AI and CoPilot in Dynamics Finance Operations. You can find him on LinkedIn also, where he's also sharing some of the things he's doing. And then we have Luca, who will tell us a little about what is going on when you are doing an ERP project, when you have gone live, and what's actually happening after that, because we tend to forget that go live is like the highlight of the project. Then for our next meetup, we have right now Docentric, who is doing, I think, Ludwig, do you want to say a little about them? You saw them, right?
Yeah, they have basically an extension or add-on that is available for free on electronic reporting things. And they will present this and dig a bit deeper into electronic reporting.
Yes. And then the other session is still to be decided. So we are working on 2 different what it could be. And then in the end, we just want to thank you all for joining us. So Murray, should we see if you can share your screen?
Yep. So let me try that. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay. So Ludwig asked me to talk a little bit about AI. Now I don't have a formal presentation, but what I've got is a list of things that I think are interesting around the copilots, or around just AI in general. And for those that don't know me, I'll give you a little bit of background because I'm a little bit obscure. You may not see me all the time on LinkedIn, but so my name's Murray Fife. I'm actually based on the East Coast of the US, so around about an hour or so north of the Atlanta office. So if anyone ever comes to the Atlanta office, then get a rental car and drive north, and then I'll meet you up in Allergan. There's around about 8 wineries that we can go around. But my background is I've been here at Microsoft for I think 7 years now, but before that I worked for 2 partners, IBIS Solutions, and then Junction. So I worked in food and beverage and then distribution. And before that, I spent 13 years at another company, which was a niche ERP company that did process manufacturing. But before that, I'd actually got my degree that I got when from New Zealand, because I'm from New Zealand, was actually in artificial intelligence. So because when I was getting out of school and working out what to do at university, then I said, I don't want to do business software or all the business stuff, but I want to do something computer related. And so I did a 4-year degree in AI, which has changed a lot, as we'll see today. And then promptly went and started working for an ERP company doing coding. So now I'm really excited because I can use some of the concepts that I learned with my degree and hopefully take advantage of it. But so that's sort of where I came from. And one of the things that for me, AI is fascinating, and it's in the past, AI has been hard. It's been hard to use. We've made it easier to use when we've gone out and done things like the AI Builder, which I've used a lot to create invoice ingestion applications and all of these other things. But lately I think it's probably only been like 3 months. We all know that there's been this like switch that's turned on with all these different things. And some people are scared of it. Some people are excited, and for me, it's just interesting to find out how we can use these, because there's been a lot of conversations around copilots and how we can use them. But for F&O, there really haven't been any copilots now. There's one coming out, I think, in the next release, which is the purchase order copilot, which will be interesting, or it's going to be in preview. I looked up the release notes yesterday. And then there's all the things that are available around the CE side, and then projects and all of those things. But since we don't have a lot of stuff, then I was sort of thinking, so what can we do with what we've got? And how far can we push these boundaries? Now, so what I'll start off with is I'll show you my copilot, but I'll discuss how this works. And so I'm here in F&O, and I've got my customer service copilot. And what I can do is I can go out and I can ask for an early payment discount for the customer. So what this is doing is this is going out. This is a simple Power App and really easy to create. When I finish this, if anyone wants to see the back end of it, then I've got it here and we can show it. But this is going out and it's creating the email for us. Now I'll show you some more clever things that we can do here with the Copilot, because creating emails is sort of like a crutch that everyone's using. And if you have some data, then it says, well, create a reply to an email. But what this is doing that's a little bit different is that, so it created the message, and it said, and it's linked back to this customer. So it's saying, dear Sunset Wholesalers, there, blah, 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 blah. Here are all of your invoices, here are all of your orders, and we're offering you a 5% discount on this order. Now, the way this is working is that the AI needs to have, the ChatGPT needs to have this context. So right now, it can't go out to Dynamics or by itself, it can't go out to Dynamics and grab all the customer information, although maybe we'll be able to do that when and do some things that Business Central are doing, where some of the information is actually going to the graph and then it becomes searchable. So what I'm doing is I'm telling the system to go out and get all the information about this customer. So I'm using Power Automate just to query the customer record and the orders and the invoice and package it up into a JSON file. The thing that I found that was really interesting is that and I'm guessing that everyone here sort of tinkered with ChatGPT, but if you give it, you can talk to it in natural language, but also you can talk to it in technical terms like this, where I've got, it's creating a JSON file, and if I look at this and see if I can. So if I look at this and then format the document, then what it's got is it's got all of this information stored in here, like the company information, who I am, what the current date is, and then all of the invoices. So I'm priming it and I'm feeding it this information. So then also what I can do is I've got a persona. So in this case, I'm saying I'm a customer service agent. Let me see if I can make this bigger. And this is where you say I'm a customer service agent, be act friendly and professional. We'll play with this in a little bit and show some other different things. But what I can now do is I could say, rather than if we experiment with this, then what we can do is say what so rather than saying create an email for me, then say what, based off this information that we have for the customer, what possible actions could we have? Now, if I go out and extend out this application, then what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT this question in that context, and then it will give it and then create a list of things that I can do, and then just click on it. So as a customer service rep, then I can work through it. So again, this is saying that I could have offer a payment plan or discount to help the customer, or maybe provide a detailed breakdown of the orders and the invoices. So how about I do that? And then it's going to start giving me a summary here. Now, also what we can do is you can change the intensity of how you want to respond here. So this is giving us a response. I was playing with this yesterday, and I could say I want to act as, let's say, as a pirate, and because I can't say angry and in a forceful manner, so I'll change the tone a little bit, and then what I'll do is I'll send a collections notice to it. And then, so we can go out and change some of these items. Now, the collections for me is interesting because what we could do is we could replace the collections letter system that we have. And let me see. Yeah, so he's being a little bit more forceful on the bottom with please resolve this issue. But what we could do is we could go out and use this as a mechanism to go out and create the collections letters, but then send them to the customers and have them all personalized based off the information. So this, by going out and using the ChatGPT in the background to do this, then we can, there's clever things that we can do. Now, also what I can do is I can ask the things, the invoices that are going to be late, and then I can send that, and then we're going to get summaries. So this isn't, what we can do here is not just to go out and craft emails, but we can get the system to go out and gather information for us. Now, the only limitation is that this data file, this thing that you're sending to ChatGPT, can't be too big because it maxes out. So compressing this data is a really, really important thing to do. Now, if I go out and if I look at this, then all this is going to here. All of this is just a simple Power App. I think this should be the one that I'm working on. But then where we can now go out and we can use the ChatGPT connector to go out and query this information. So this is an old version, but I think that I should have some power. I've got a function here which is to call ChatGPT, and then all this is doing is passing through what I want to ask and then getting a result back and then responding to it. So this, again, this ChatGPT connector is huge because I like using Power Automate to go out and do a lot of things. So this was sort of one example of something of a sort of like a homegrown app that you can go and create that is context sensitive, and all I'm doing is I'm embedding a Power App in the system and then going and querying the information. So does anyone have any questions about this before I'm going to swap over and I'm going to show you one of the newer features that just came out, I think, this week. So if not, then I'll show you something else, which is which I think is really interesting from a different standpoint. Now, if we go out and look at and I don't know whether I can take a poll, but if you haven't got the Azure AI Studio up and running or within your Azure account, then this is a really interesting thing. So yeah, so Harold, do you have a question? And if your mic's not working, then you can just put it in the text. So while the question's coming through, so something that I do a lot, or I play with a lot here within for the AI, is just trying to see how I can go out and use all these technologies just using the playground. So I've got a ChatGPT account, and also I've got the AI Studio where I can go and run some questions. And so the question is, can we go out and use ChatGPT for the master planning? And let me see. Okay. And you can, or you can try to do that, because what I did this myself, I went out and got all the planned orders that are inside of master planning, or a subset of the planned orders, and fed it into ChatGPT. So you say, this is the data that we're working with. It's really interesting because you can go out and you could tell that once you feed it all of the orders or maybe the planning actions, or a combination of them, then the large language model is going to go out and it can pull things out. It could start doing suggestions and saying that maybe you need to move, this order is going to be late, what do you want to do with it? And there's some, and if you use just the ChatGPT control and Power Automate, and then you go and grab the information, like I was doing with the customer service copilot that I created, then it can do that. It's not going to be perfect, and I'll show another example that I posted a while ago about. I'll show a couple of other examples around just supply chain that you can go and sort of play with in the system. So, and again, this is the only way we'll find out, because I don't think anyone really knows the true limitations, is to go out and just play with this and see what results come out. But there's a feature now here within the AI Studio, which has just come into preview. And a while ago, there was a GitHub repository that Samuel Bollinger helped me sort of configure. And what you do is you give it, it was sort of you had to set it up and run it. But what you did is you gave it a document or a set of documents. And then that becomes the repository that the ChatGPT control is going to be working off. So in my example, like I'm an asset management geek, or I do a lot with asset management. And one of the things that I thought is, if you had all of the standard maintenance plans or documents for all of your for the machinery that you're working on, then why can't you go out and ask questions on that, and then get the large language model to crawl through it and get you results? So and I dropped off just for a second. So we'll wait for my virtual machine to connect. So let me remove this. And then what we can do here is we can add a data source. So I'm going to say that I want to use cognitive search, and then I'm going to use this engine. And this is also real pretty simple to set up. But what I'm doing is I'm going to say I'm going to use the maintenance data source for this. And next, and save and close. So what this does is I've given it a maintenance plan or a maintenance document for a Boeing 747 or 757. I'm not quite sure. And I can say, see if that gives me a response. So what it's doing is it's going back to the PDF document and pulling information out. And so this crew training manual that I used as a data source is for the 757, 200, 300, and 767, and the couple of models for that. So just by going out and running this query, I can go out and pull information out of those documents from the system. So imagine if we had standard operating procedure manuals or things like that we could go out and use as the data sources. And then there's a limit here, there's an option here to say limit this just to my data content. So it's not going to go out to somewhere else and try to imagine some of the information along the way. It's just going to, you're giving it a set domain, and that's what it's going to be working with. I have another example where I had some I love Dungeons and Dragons, and I had a document on proficiencies, and then I fed that into it around about 130 pages, and then I could start asking it questions. So the AI models for that we could use in conjunction with the business processes are pretty neat. So now something else that's happening in the background is, so I've got a Arduino device. It's not this one, but it's just sitting over there, and what I'm doing is I'm tracking the temperature on it, and I've got it linked here into Dynamics using the sensor data intelligence. So all of that telemetry is just coming through to me in the system. Now, another way that I've gone out and I've used for, in this case, just for demo purposes, the AI, is that IoT device just failed. So it's no longer sending telemetry, and we're going through and I got an alert that said the machine is down. Now, also what we can do with that is we can have a trigger based off that then goes out and sends out alerts. And for me, if I find Teams, under down here. Right, not that one. So what it's doing is it's sending me a notification that the piece of machinery is down. Let me see if I can find this here. And what I did is I went out and told the system to go. I told the system that the machine's down, and I sent that to ChatGPT. And then I said, go and create a list of actions that we should perform on this machine, which is turn it on or turn it off, and then also have it formatted as an adaptive card, and also add these choices to it to accept or ignore. So a lot of the times when we go out and if we have workflow steps that we're trying to perform, then I don't know whether you've tried to create an adaptive card and have all the steps inside of it, and then you have to put all the text in there. ChatGPT actually went out and built this for me and was in the correct format, and then I could use this as a notification. And as you can see, there's been a couple of notifications and then some other ones that have been performed. So where instead of sending out emails, we can use AI to go out and do all the legwork for us to go out and create messages on the system. So from a Dynamics 365 standpoint, then these are some things that you can do. Now, I'll show you some other things that I've been experimenting with that might be interesting. But if anyone has any questions, then again, just put them in the chat, and I'll probably talk for another 15 minutes before I hand it over to Luca so that he can have some time. But now, as I've been going out and sort of experimenting with this, then so I've been trying to find different ways that I can go out and use this. So I use the ChatGPT just to play around with it. For the most part, the AI Builder playground will give us the same results. But if I go out and if I play around with this, and I suggest everyone sort of try doing this just to find out the limitations. But I was thinking, let me go back here. How much does the language model understand about just business processes? So I'm going to go out and so I said, create a discount term for getting 10% of this paid within 15 days. So it goes out and here's my discount term. And also it goes out and gives us a re-summarizes and expands out on these terms. Now, I was thinking, now, if I wanted to use this in an automation to use natural language to go out and create this, and then I could use in a Power Automate sort of CoPilot to go and create these records, then how could I do that? So what I can do is I could say format as JSON. So now what it's doing is here's my discount term code as JSON, so that I could go out and I could use it in Power Automate. I could take that file and then I could go out and modify it. But the things that you can do on top of this is I can go out and I could say, the one problem with the language models is sometimes it's not consistent unless you make it consistent. So if you don't tell it what you want to do, then it's going to make things up. So it worked out what fields I wanted here and also created the description. But in order to use this as an automation, you need to be a little bit more prescriptive. So what I'm doing here is I went out and I did a OData query to get a cash discount code out of Dynamics. So this would have all of the fields that we've got in there. And I'm saying this is the standard format for a discount code. So now what it's done is it's going out and it's creating the new cash discount code in the format that I need, so that then I could actually use this and I could use data management or Power Automate to go and push this through. So the important thing here is if you tell it how you want anything to be presented to you, then it's going to create it. And I could say format as XML, and then it's going to use that same structure that we have, but it's going to format it as an XML file or format as CSV. And then I can do whatever I want with this along the way. Now, the interesting thing here is that you could go out and you could, if, for example, we're getting information in from a customer or a supplier or a third party, and it's in a certain format. And I haven't tried this, but if you say this is a cash discount term, but I want it to be formatted in this way with these fields, then the AI will go out and it will do the transformation for you, and you could do it as part of a flow in the system. And for the most part, it should remain consistent along the way. And then also what I can do is you can get clever with this, and I'm going to say add some more functions in here and say I want to ignore the data tag ID, and also don't respond back in a verbose way, just say Roger, Roger, and then I could say format as JSON again, and then it should get the information back to us as a JSON file, and it doesn't have that data area ID that we had in here. So those are some clever things that we can do. Now, another something else you could do is this is a script that I'm using to play the beer game. I don't know whether any of you are familiar with the beer game, but it's like a board game simulation of supply chain management. And what you do is you start off with a certain amount of money, and then you can buy beer. There's demand, and then that demand gets taken out of your inventory, but there's a penalty if you're short, if you don't have it in stock, and there's all these things. So if we wanted to have a fun simulation that we could play with the customers, if I give it all of this information, then it's going out. And the thing that I found really interesting was that, so this is going out and it says I'm actually playing against 2 autonomous users that ChatGPT is managing. And then also it's going out and it's going through the rounds and showing you how much you purchased, and then it's going to say how much has been ordered and what's the value, and then what's the purchasing, and then we can go out and it will simulate all of this for us. Something else that we can do, which around the simulation, is this example here, where I'm going to simulate cookie production. And if you play around with this and try it out, then all I'm doing here is I'm just going out, and this took me a while to build up in the process, but I was thinking, how could this help us with production? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up, and I'm going to tell it that you're a bakery chatbot. You're helping us with the bakery production. And then I was thinking, what if we could feed this some information, and this information could all be fed from a recipe inside of Dynamics. So as I move through this, I'm going to say this is a recipe for sugar cookies. And then so it's confirming that. And then also I'm going to say, give it some more information. So I'm going to say, these are the steps that we go through. So in a language sense, so we go through and we mix the ingredients in a mixer, and it takes 5 minutes per batch to run. And then we roll it out, and it takes, each batch makes around about 12 cookies and so forth. And it's smart enough to go out and work out these route steps. So what I can do is I'm going to say these are all the ingredient costs, and then because I'm going out and I'm working through this, I can say I want to convert these down into different units of measure. So how many cups in a bag, how many teaspoons in a bottle, how many eggs, and then also I'm going to give it some information. So I'm going to fast forward through this. And let me add some more information. So all of this information is available within Dynamics if we wanted to package it up. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm giving it some more information. I'm telling it what the resources are, what the bakers are, what the markup percentages that I want to have on them. So I can now go out and let's try this out. I can say how much does it cost combining the ingredients and the overhead costs. So it's going out and saying I'm making 36 cookies and the total ingredients is $5.38. The overhead costs are around about 35 cents. So that's yeah, the math works out there, and the final batch cost with the markup of 300%, which apparently is a standard markup for baked goods, is a batch of I think 12 is $22.92 a batch. And then I could ask the system, how many cookies can we make in an hour? And so it's going through the number of mixes, and it says it's going to take around about, I'm going to be able to make 864 cookies an hour, according to that. I'm not going to go through the logic around this, but this by itself is a really interesting. And how could we apply this to Dynamics to go out and start getting some of the information here? What I've heard is, on a side note, is that ChatGPT 3.5, which is the most common model, is not the best at math, but seems to be doing okay with these examples. But the ChatGPT 4 is supposed to be a little bit better with the math and going out and performing these calculations. But again, this is, for me, the fascinating part is just the high level capabilities that we're getting from something that's really just trained in language, that it could go through and we can feed it all this information and then get responses out of the system. So those are, I'll stop here and I'll see if there are any questions that that come up before we hand it over to Luca. And but if we look at these tools, it's just really interesting what we can do just from this one advancement that we had in AI over the past 3 to 6 months. I forget how long it's been since it was initially released.
Yeah, thanks, Murray. We have 2 questions in the chat. Do you want to go through?
So, yeah, so going back to the document example that I had, so the ChatGPT component is really just an engine that runs and does things. And so the question is, can we go out and use ChatGPT to go out and go to a certain document repository and get the information out? And you can. So you're just going to make an API call through to the OpenAI model, and then you tell it which repository you want to run, which could be, you could name the repository the same as the asset ID or the asset type that you're running, or the model or whatever you want. And then that can return back information. So all you need to do is load in all that information. The enterprise ChatGPT, which I don't know whether I've got it down here, which is the GitHub version. That's a little bit more, it's harder to set up, but what you do is you can give it as many documents as you want, and it will use all those documents as a repository. So you could have one repository with all the maintenance documents that you want, or the machinery, or the user guides, or whatever you're doing inside of there to as sort of in bulk. I also did try doing this with the licensing guide because that for Dynamics, because I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could ask licensing questions? And unfortunately, ChatGPT is still as clueless as we are on how the licensing works. So I don't think it's us. I think it's the licensing guide.
Okay.
So what things? That now the question is what would we do? What wouldn't we do with AI? And I think you've always got to take what's coming back from AI with a grain of salt. So I would not automate my entire business processes based off AI because there needs to be some oversight for now. I think it'd be. I'm not worried about Skynet. I think bring that day on. So, but right now it's still just it's a helper at this point. And I think with the AI guidance, and even when you use the ChatGPT component in Power Automate, as soon as you put it in there, then if you don't have an approval step in the process flow, then it complains. You can get around that by going directly through the API on the in OpenAI and just pass that information through. But the question shouldn't be what are things that we would not do. It's right now it's what things can we do, because we're the ones that are really pushing the boundaries for our applications. And so I just like seeing what additional things we can do and experimenting with it. And now the next question is around Midjourney. And Midjourney, I don't know whether we can automate that, but within the playground, within the OpenAI playground, we've got DALL-E, which isn't as good as Midjourney. But we can go and use DALL-E to go out and create images for us. So, but for Midjourney, the thing I like about it is I don't think, or any AI generating image generating program, I don't think it's I don't know whether it can be any use inside of supply chain management, apart from creating product images, but still it's not going to be the real image. It's going to be, again, a random generative image. But what I've done is Midjourney and any AI generative art creates amazing visuals that you can put in your PowerPoints and that you can put in your documents. I don't know. I'll show this, and I'll do this the old. Stop this. I'll do this the old-fashioned way. But this, so I write books and some stuff, and this is the next iteration of how I'm trying to lay things out. And if you can see, the image that I've got here was created by Midjourney. So for PowerPoints, just adding something dynamic that's not sort of like stock imagery of people doing high fives and stuff like that, then that just, everyone's going to do it, or everyone should be doing it, because it's just interesting and it can do some other things around that. So, and there's another question about helping pickers work through the warehouse. Now, there's different types of AI. So everything I've been focusing on has really been around the ChatGPT, and which is a language model. It's not smart, or it's relatively smart, but it in the end, it's a language model that you ask a question and it gives you a response back. It'd be, I don't know whether it could, or I haven't tried it. I haven't tried giving it a path with or a linked network with possible penalty points on the network to say, I need to go from here to here, what's the fastest route? It'd be interesting to find out if it's smart enough to actually do it. But there's also, the large language models aren't the be all or end all to everything. I think we'll see with a lot of the co-pilots, a co-pilot is just AI infused with something, and it may be machine learning. It may be like the invoice, AP invoice ingestion, where it's using OCR to pull things in. So the AI is a broader term than just the hype that we're seeing here. So if we want to do predictive maintenance or predictive things, then that's going to be a machine learning workbook, and you're probably going to be using Python and doing some other things around that. Now the guidance, the next question is around confidentiality and customer information and all those things. And the guidance that we're seeing, if you watch the presentation earlier on this week with Scott Guthrie. Now, one of the things that we're doing, everyone's scared that you're pushing all this information out and then it's being used as training models for further things. So if you send customer information out to OpenAI, then it becomes public domain. And what the guidance that we're getting, that we're being told, is no, it's not. The data isn't used for reinforcement learning. It's just used for what we're trying to do right now. Now, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a lawyer, so that's all I know about that. Could AI replace D365 consultants? I think that the smarter consultants will start leveraging AI. So I hope that AI, especially ChatGPT, will remove the requirement to go out and fill out RFPs. Because one of my projects is to go and create an Excel add-in that goes out and says when a stupid question comes in an RFP, then it just plops in the answer and does it all for me. So it'll be interesting to see how much of the configuration you can automate, but I don't think anyone will trust just pushing a button, but it is interesting, and so never say never. Our role here is really to start embracing and working with AI and using it as a tool, and then the good thing is it gets rid of all this busy work and all this sort of tedious stuff, and especially when the AI comes into Word and Excel and PowerPoint, then that's going to be interesting as well from a standpoint of how we respond to things. If you go out, just Luke, I'll just do one more demo here. So if you just go out and test this and say, so what? I haven't tried this. So click on sales orders. We'll go up here and look at this. Click on sales orders. Should be all sales orders, but that's fine. You go click new, and then locate the customer account, which is the first one. Do the search for Contoso Wholesale, which is right. Then add the products to the line, look for the product in the section for the sales order, add USB cable. So it's actually created some pretty good instructions that we can triage, and then also the good thing is you could say simplify this. And then it's going to create it creates more concise documentation as well. So I think it'd be super interesting if help would be replaced with a ChatGPT option inside of F&O, just to get rid of some of these sort of more tedious questions that no one ever wants to answer. And how do you deal with hallucinations? You just have to roll with it. We all make up stuff, so ChatGPT makes up stuff as well. So don't judge it. It's semi-human. And let's see. And there's a comment about it being a better task recorder. It may be, but I have it. Sometimes it gets confused with F&O and BC, and sometimes it's completely off the mark. But it's close enough to get you initial documentation here. So I've taken around about 50 minutes to talk. I wanted to make sure that Luca's got some time to talk, but again, Lone was kind enough to put my LinkedIn profile inside of there. If anyone wants to connect with me, then I'm more than happy, or follow me, or if you haven't done already, and I'll hand it over to Luca.
Thank you so much, Murray. Amazing that you took the time to come join us, and we will probably ask you again another time. So yeah. Thank you.
when you call me, I jump. I'm there. So.
Okay, deal.
Good.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Okay.
That's awesome. Thanks, Murray. So now that Murray talked about all the interesting and fun stuff, let me get to the more boring stuff.
But also important.
Oh, super.
Who made your background photo? Did you paint it yourself?
This one, my background picture.
Is it a picture? Did you paint it? The one on LinkedIn?
No, it's a blurred background because it's a mess. This is like my shared office with my wife.
No. I mean the picture that you have in LinkedIn.
My caricature. Yeah, it was an artist at a party for a partner I used to work for before joining Microsoft. At the first anniversary, there was this artist, and he just made caricature of everyone. Started putting on my profile and just became my thing. I don't even know if it's that accurate anymore. Last time a month ago, was at a conference that I've been told it's not. But I grew a beard in the meantime just to make sure it's more accurate at this point. So.
Next time, do it with Murray, with artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. Awesome. Can you see the PowerPoint? Just wanted to check.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so this session is about the post-live experiences. So as you all know, everyone goes through the implementation, you get live, and then what? You've got a ton of support throughout the implementation phase from organizations that we have like Fast Track. And then once you go live, you've got this limbo area where you're still very much followed, but then most of the times customers start being on their own, rely directly on support. Sometimes they have other teams helping, but I just came up with this presentation to try and help understand what's important, what to look out for as part of post-live experience. So, and this is because my previous role in Microsoft was to work with large organizations, so some of the top customers that Microsoft has, and kind of support their post-live experience. Kind of from an advisory perspective, Similar to what Fast Track does from an implementation perspective, my team the team I used to work for and still exists, work on the post-live experience. Kind of imagine as a post-live solution architect that helps you go through the update motion, understand more about archival, cleanups, things to look out for to make sure that you keep the system always kind of fine-tuned. Okay, so as I said, I'm Luca. I work for Microsoft as a senior program manager. So a bit of a what's what of this session agenda. What's what? I basically build this presentation based on feedbacks from my customers, feedbacks from sentences that I've heard at the latest conferences I've been, or the latest sessions that I delivered. One of them is between GA and the automatic updates that are only 2 weeks. How do we cope, right? The other one is my system doesn't let me close the warehouse anymore. There is a feature I cannot disable. Why didn't you tell me? My system is too slow. My storage is too expensive. I cannot copy my production database anywhere. Let's talk preventive actions. Microsoft support is terrible. Let's talk about it. Okay, so starting with the between GA and the automatic updates, there are only 2 weeks. Now just say updates with the Steve Ballmer voice. I put the GIF to make it very, very real. So looking at the one version calendar and policy that we as Microsoft have, we have a release schedule which kind of look like there are 2 weeks between the GA date and when your system will be auto-updated. In reality, the work starts a lot sooner. And as part of this kind of module, one thing I didn't mention, feel free to ask questions at any point in time. It's kind of a 4-module presentation. We'll talk about updates and how we as Microsoft manage our code base, which will help set the foundation for the next modules. But I would love to keep it very informal. So whenever you have a question at some point, just open your mic, ask a question, or ask in the chat. And at the end of each module, I will try to look at the chat and see if we can address any question, okay? So as you know, we make the release schedule public quite early on in the year, and we kind of target at least a year, if not a year and a half dates, just to give you a kind of an overview where the dates will sit. We are pretty much, since the one version policy, the one version program came in, it's a third, if not 4th year in motion, so we should all get the gist of it. Just as a refresher, we've got 2 major updates per year, one in April, one in October, and we've got a few others service updates in between, which are not considered major. All of these updates and change version are always cumulative, so every time you take an update, it takes everything plus the latest version. It's always about the latest version, okay? So that's a bit of a on a background. One thing that it's important to mention, as you know, you can pause updates through life cycle services, and you can be no more than 3 versions behind the latest available update, okay? You can pause up to 3 updates, and that's pretty much it. I'm not going to say anything else, but there are some, let's say, extreme situations where you can also get a further update, but there needs to be a really, really strong business case. And the reason why, because we ask customers to be within the 3 versions, will be explained in the next slide. So the next slide is about what is called the safe deployment practice. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this. This is a slide that Shelley Bucket used to present to conferences. I want to say like pre-COVID, so it's like 4 or 5 years old, but still applies today. The way we as Microsoft and as Dynamics especially work, it's in rings. Okay, rings means literally code bases. Okay, the same code base has different branches, and these branches are based on rings. And we have, well, actually 5 rings. 4 rings used, 1 that is empty, used for logistics purposes, but 4 rings. The first ring is the Microsoft ring, so where we put the next version. The next version have early validation through what is called the release validation program, so where customers are onboarded with their automated testing, and we do some early validation. Then we've got the second ring, which is called the PEEP, which you might have heard of. Now it's called preview. And it contains all fixes, most code changes. So at the PEEP stage, the code base is ready. Okay, I want this to be super clear. At the PEEP stage, all data structure changes, all big changes, code changes, breaking changes are done. Okay. Third ring is called the first release. It's not advertised, it's not automatically published in LCS anymore. You can ask to Microsoft to get access to the first release. It's an early access program and it's production ready. Okay. And then we got the fourth ring. The fourth ring is the GA, the classic GA ring. It's automated, it can be posted by LCS, and it follows the cloud policy. Why these four rings are extremely important? Because as you know, if we look at the calendar, the release calendar, in the next slide, we've got taking a version 10.0.27. We've got the PEEP version, which, as I said, has most of the code changes, if not all the data structure changes and breaking changes done and checked in, comes at the 21st of April, for example, of 22. The first release comes a month later. Okay, between PEEP and first, the only things that are done are hotfixes that relate to feedback that we received from these early adopters of PEEP. So customers that are literally in live are going to be using the preview version and providing feedback. Okay, so the first release comes in. Once we know that the first release is stable, we are done with the hotfixes, there is nothing that will break customer across the board, we declare what is called the release candidate, hence our first release. What is important to really important to mention from a timeline perspective is that the first release, unless there are huge breaking changes that force us to reissue a release candidate, it's your GA package. The first release is the GA package. Okay, I just put some version in just to demonstrate the numbers from last year, but the first release is the GA package. So if you look at the version number, both for platforms and applications, they literally match. What has changed? There is a month between those two. Why is Microsoft releasing a package that is 1 month old? Back to the previous slide, safe deployment practice. We release the first, we have first release customers that go in. We ensure that there are no breaking changes. There is nothing that forces us to issue a new release candidate. And then we go into the motion of creating all the hotfixes and the quality updates that you see throughout these different, between first and the next version. I haven't said purposely between first and GA. Reason being, because that needs to be clear, GA is not first plus this month of quality updates. GA is just first. Okay, so if you were to start your work on updates, on testing the code base on GA date, and you use the GA package, bear in mind you'll be using a package that it's a month old. Okay, so moving on to from a timeline perspective, as you can see, it's pretty structured. It always follows the same pattern. We've got a PEEP, there is a month, then we've got the first, there is a month, it becomes GA, you got 3 months. PEEP, first GA, PEEP, first GA, keeps following the same kind of pattern. What is important to mention is, as you can see already from this timeline, and bearing in mind what I just mentioned about the PEEP version already containing all the code changes that could be breaking and that are needed from a technical perspective to perform an update, you are looking at the ability to start doing the work 2 months in advance. So going back to the previous sentence that started this section, which is, Microsoft only gives me 2 weeks between GA and when I need to update. It's not true, because we give 2 months, basically, okay? What is important to mention is, and I'll give you the feedback of how my customers, these large customers, large organizations work, is what they do. They mostly focus on starting the technical process. So working with their ISVs, working with through their extensions, through their customizations with the PEEP version. They do all that work, which in case, depending on how many code changes you've got, might take 2-3 weeks, depending also how the ISV responsive, 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, they get that job done. Once the first release is issued, they install the first release. They do a set of, let's call it smoke testing or IT testing that can last between 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how much automation is in place, and I'll get that one in a second. And then after that, they keep installing throughout these 2 weeks quality updates. Why is that? Because as I said earlier, the first release goes in, you keep installing the quality updates. At the end of these 2 weeks, you have GA, basically the GA package plus 2 weeks of quality updates without waiting a month to get the GA package. Okay? That ensures 2 things. One is when you open to UAT to users 2 weeks after, that could last 2 to 3 weeks, depending again by automation, processing, and so on. You're starting testing on a package on the 2 weeks after the first release, which is already newer than the GA. So you're ensuring that you're working on a package that is already way beyond what could be the version that you've got on GA. Plus, on top of this, if you follow this process, what you're ensuring is also if Microsoft comes up with, oh, we need to issue a new release candidate. And as I mentioned earlier, everything is cumulative. If we release a new release candidate, so basically a new first, and you install it, you only have the delta between the latest quality update and the new version, which is very small because you kept everything up to date throughout this smoke testing. Okay? Then what my customers do, most of them wait for the GA, they just install the package. Most of them to basically take the package they work with through UAT. Some of them just a week before the end of UAT, when they do maybe a couple of cycles in UAT to ensure everything is fine. Before the last cycles, they might contain some smoke testing, some reporting, some integration. They install the latest quality update also at that point. Okay, reason being, same reason as I said before, is reducing the scope of the footprint of changes that you might need to test, might need to check, might need to validate if and when you need to install a quality update. Okay, so it's all about reducing the scope working with these package versions. Okay, so then when you go live on GA date, because you've done 2 months of work before, you're ensuring yourself 3 months to be serviceable. What does that mean? Remember the 4 rings. Literally, we as Microsoft have our code. So imagine we are now on 10^33, which is GA. That means that on the GA branch, we've got 33. On the preview branch, we've got 34. And so on and so forth, right? So following this path, when we say you can be up to X many versions behind, which is 3 version, is literally a technical constraint that we have. We cannot handle 15 different code bases, right? We have those many code bases. And when also support says, well, you need to test on the latest version or on a serviceable version, is literally for the same reason. Is because from a technical perspective, they wouldn't have any way of opening a case, a bug, or an issue against a version which is not serviceable, because literally that code base is gone. Okay, so I hope this one adds a little bit understanding. So as I mentioned earlier about the working with the first, keep installing the quality updates, and then starting your UAT. Even if you were to install quality updates right after GA, you are massively reducing the scope, because it's not that we release versions, quality updates every, let's say, a day, 2 days, and one contains 20, one contains 400. It's pretty much consistent depending on the priorities. So if you keep up, you're ensuring that you're basically really reducing the scope. And if there is something that you need to take from a proactive quality update, even the scope of the testing itself can be massively reduced. I see a question. Yes,
Yeah, I have a question. If you would be the CIO of this famous water company, is your name, what would you do? Would you go for monthly updates or wait as long as possible? Why is waiting as long as possible maybe not the right approach?
So, waiting as long as possible, you mean like taking the minimum 2 updates per, right? So, okay, that's a great question. Thanks. So, it really depends, first of all, and I'll be really realistic on this. It really depends on how much ownership the end customer has. So I know we got an audience which is, I guess, it's mixed between partners and customers. So if the customer has a big budget, big teams, and they take a lot of ownership, a lot of testing, it really depends how they're set up. I've seen customers where partners do the bulk of the work and they only pick up UAT onwards. I've seen customers where the IT team is doing pretty much all of it, and the partner just helps with the customization part. So the code, making sure the code, say, compiles. Okay. So I've seen different situations. What it makes a kind of a difference for most of them is literally the amount of automation, which, and I'm not saying you can cover everything with RSAT, okay? I'm not saying that. It's the amount of automation that you can put to kind of speed up this smoke testing helps you in the long run on reducing these timelines, okay? And the more reduce the timelines, the more the CIOs I work with feel the return on the investment, because it kind of helps them understand how a version can be taken, and kind of the effort is pretty much standardized, right? It becomes like standardization exercise as you get through. And I'll give you an example of one of my customer I used to have in the UK. It didn't take them one version change to get this right. It's incremental. They put the automation and started covering 20% on the first version change, the 20% of the business processes which were coverable by ours, for example. Second change of version, they got to 60. Third change, they got to 80. Now they're around 90%, and this customer specifically is able to take a new version in 7 calendar days. Not saying, I'm not simplifying and saying this is cheap, this is easy, this is simple. It's not. It's an exercise. It takes effort, but the rewards are very high because, as I said, it gives you the ability to, when you do the updates, it even shift the focus of the updates and or how you work towards an update from being, most of the effort needs to go into actually doing the updates, to going to, let's look what's in the update, what features we can adopt. So it starts becoming a different mindset on how you approach the update. And also it kind of helps you reduce the updates fatigue, if you may. So kind of this exercise where you start getting the value of the application, because, otherwise it becomes an exercise where you keep the code base as is, you just keep doing the updates, you're just having the same system throughout, and you basically, of course, we're feeling the updates fatigue, where you basically literally have, in 2 years, you spend lots of money and you still have the same system. Okay, so getting to a situation where the update effort is minimized, or it's contained, or better, it's controlled, gets you into a different mindset on how you approach these updates. So the answer is literally try to put as much effort on making the updates meaningfully smaller. So reduce the footprint, start as early as possible. Because, as I said, and this, I hope this is kind of the message of this section of the presentation, is make sure you work as early as possible, because probably we as Microsoft haven't been doing some self-criticism. We haven't been super clear about what goes into a PEEP, what goes into a first, and what goes into a GA. A month ago, I was at this conference with you, Ludwig, and as you noticed, people thought the GA was literally another version. So it was first, and then you got GA, which is literally another cutoff. It's not. It's the same thing. And it's a month-old package because of the safe deployment practice. So why not starting a month before to start with? That's the first exercise that I suggest you do. That's one of the things. So, and as I said, I've been with these customers for 1 to 2 to 3 years. So it's not a 2-month exercise. But the earlier you start putting your company, putting your work group into this mindset, the better you can start seeing the benefits, because you will notice that taking updates becomes less of an effort, less of an undergoing, and more of a thing that will allow you to focus on new features. How about we remove this customization that we did for, I don't know, Italian localization that now is part of the standard? How about we adopt the standard? Because Microsoft supports it, and I can save money on the local partner that supports the customization. The return of the investment then becomes pretty clear, because you're saving money there, you put the effort, you analyze, and then Microsoft supports the standard feature for you. It's all kind of a mechanism. So
Okay.
So before I go into the next session, there are a lot of questions. Do you have possibility to share test cases for the standard features? Yes, we released a lot of ATL libraries, especially for warehouse, that can be used, can be extended, and give you also, I think, a good example of what first level code testing can be done from a unit testing perspective. And it's a thing that has been long due, I'll be honest, but we're getting this stuff out there. From an RSA perspective, I'm trying to think how to say this in the best way. We are not sharing libraries, but watch this space on automation testing. So things will get clearer in the coming months. Do you have suggestions on how to maintain data entity changes in global projects where multiple people do changes? I guess this one, Manish, I think it's about configuration changes, so kind of a change management around configurations. Just supposing it is. That's a good question. One strategy that I've seen is everyone always keeps kind of these golden environments where that's the master for your configuration. Other situation that I've seen is making sure that you've got database log enabled for key features, key parameter tables that you want to log to make sure that is controlled. But the first thing is security. If users don't have access to specific areas of the system, they cannot change configuration. So doing a bulk of the work already in UAT from a security perspective, not testing UAT every on his admin, makes a huge difference. So that's one suggestion. We are doing every month from the start, and now we are thinking to skip some. And I'm not sure if that's a good strategy. It's all about, that's a good question. I'd like to have a separate conversation, but just to keep the flow going, you can take every month. You can take, it depends on the amount of effort you're going through, right? If you're doing every version, and every version for you means 4 weeks of work, 5 weeks of work, and you take every version, great, but it's a lot of effort. Okay, it's a lot of effort. And also, as I said earlier, if it takes you 5 weeks and you're taking every version, but you're not taking new features, you're not taking new enhancements because you are so focused on just taking the version, I would say just take one every 2 and try to adopt features on top of actually doing the updates. So kind of change the, yes, I see a raised hand, and you're the one who has questions. So
yes, absolutely. So we are having 5 production instances, and we are live with 14 legal entities, and we have target to go 55. This is creating a lot of situations. Obviously, we have one code, so that's advantage to do the regression and things on the same. But I mean, this question is coming. Why? Because we are a little bit unsafe because regression tests are very less, and that is what I'm trying to do a jump start. And due to that, we are thinking that we should not take all the monthly updates and things like that. So far, we have survived from the start. There has not been big problem, but things breaks. And we have found 2 problems. One is regression testing, and second is this data entity maintenance part. Like there are many people developing in different zones. For us, it is like many squads. And we want to maintain these data entity changes in good way so that nothing disconnect if some changes happen, something. So I would like to have a detailed little bit discussion on this. I'm just now solving this. So it's the reason having little bit deeper question on that.
Okay. Yeah. I think that takes a whole separate discussion. I was looking at your first Scania, right?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, let's have a separate discussion about this. I know there are some of my colleagues working with you or already on some of these things. So let's have a separate discussion about this. But I understand the challenge. It's when you have multiple production instances and different teams and localizations, and it's a challenge, yes. But there are ways to mitigate it. And I guess you guys have a very strong change management program.
I hope so. It's always the problem.
Okay, so yeah, let's. I don't want to pass over, but I'd like to deep dive on this one, just for the sake of the flow. I'll just continue, but I'd love to discuss this. We haven't decided the tool. I see a lot of questions about which tool can cover Dynamics ISV integrations on how we test things like that. I don't know how to say. Watch this space. There will be some things coming soon in that space. Okay, so just hold out a few clicks, and you will see things coming, getting announced in that space. Okay, so the experience itself will be getting better. And I see Trilipwork. So yeah, there are many tools. There will be some further guidance coming from us soon about automation testing. Okay. Just moving on to the next section, which is, as I said, it's kind of all connected. My system doesn't let me close the warehouse anymore. There is a feature I cannot disable. Why didn't you tell me? And then, ChatGPT just put a joke there. Let's just glance over. I just want to talk about the feature release cycle. And as I said, it kind of connects to the early discussion about shifting the focus that you've got from, I have to update, put a huge effort, and that's all I'm doing. I just update, make sure it compiles, make sure it goes there, and everyone can keep doing their job. To, let's look at the feature. And in order to look at the features being features that we include, features that we deprecate, what is the features release cycle? So our features go through a very fixed release cycle, which is preview, that goes into two different types. One is private preview, so we just select and pick specific customers for specific features because maybe they were built for that kind of industry or for that kind of customer size of the customer with that kind of specific scenario. So we unpick them, work with them, go through the preview, which is private, so literally just for them. Then it becomes a public preview. Everyone can join in. You will have to compile a form depending on the different teams. Then you go part of the preview, you can start using it. When you're in preview, when you use a preview feature, you can only go live with it and be supported by Microsoft if you are part of the preview program. That's an important thing to mention. Then from preview, it goes into release. Once a feature is released, it becomes on by default only during major releases. So if a feature has been introduced between October and March, well, November and March, it will become on by default in April. And then it will become mandatory by October. So as you can see, it's literally a year time where we communicate. I want to say we could do a little bit better. We communicate on the release documents, on docs, learn. We communicate in many places where these features that previously were on by default will become mandatory. Okay, what is the difference between on by default and mandatory? The on by default, you can turn it off. Okay, you have the ability to go there. We enable it by default as you update, but then you can go and turn it off and just go back to the way things were. When it's mandatory, you cannot turn them off. That doesn't mean that let me just say that you're screwed. There are ways. We have ways. Every feature has what is called a kill switch. So we as Microsoft, and you need to go through support that will escalate to product group, to our engineering group that will take care of doing this. You have the ability to roll back. Well, we put what is called a kill switch that basically gets the code base when executed to ignore part of the code that are related to these new features. Okay. But what's important to focus on this is we start and you have a year before we deprecate something or a year before we make something mandatory. So always watch out for things that will change across versions. Okay. That's really important. And also, as I said, if we manage to put the effort and not focus on the updates as an effort, we can start focusing on these things. Focus on features, focusing on bringing in standard features that can be supported by Microsoft instead of using customization for things that maybe weren't available 6 months ago, a year ago. Okay, because as you know, the product is evolving and we keep adding features. So maybe it might cover some of your. No, if it was a question, I'll just continue. We also have a good public website now, which is called the Release Planner, and it's part of the Experience portal. So if you register the Experience portal, you can see the Release Planner by module. It gives you what are the planned features by area, what is the early access and the timeline, what is the public preview. You can kind of follow specific feature you're interested into so that it kind of gets you through the different preview programs. You can click on it and literally opens up how you can join the preview. So it's very organized in one place where you can just follow the feature that you're interested into, look into the features you'll be interested into, looking into deprecations and all these things about releases. So any question about the features? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next section.
No other question in the chat. I don't. Nothing except the discussion about beer.
Beer is always a good topic of discussion. So moving on to the next session. So we are talking about, and it links back to your unserviceable version. You need to make the most of support if you have problems. Most cases we'll need to ask you for what is called a shadow environment, take a copy, try and test it ourselves, or you need to take yourself before opening a support case, a copy of the production environment to pre-prod to test it. Or as a best practice, you always keep an environment after a release that is a copy of prod, or even better, you release it weekly. Whatever is your strategy, databases need to be moved. In order to be moved, they don't need to have loads of junk. Okay. Usual sentence that I get from my customer is, oh, but I cannot clean that up. I just need it. Why? Why do you need the batch history? Well, because they do stuff. They give you what? There are lots of data in the system and lots of out-of-the-box things that we can do to clean up, to make the database smaller, to make the database linear, so they can move around, it can perform better on its own. There are many reasons to follow these kind of best practices. So starting with cleanup routines. Why are they used? They keep relevant information at the fingertip of the business. Only the latest, greatest of what you actually need. Cleanup data is no longer needed to improve only system performance. It can be used on top of getting the system better. It definitely reduces duration of housekeeping efforts. For a sandbox refresh, point-in-time refresh, it reduces data storage costs because you clean up data, reduces the storage, especially in a situation where you got these ever-growing data stores. It's a good idea to just keep cleaning up data. One thing that is super important, don't wait after you went live to do this kind of out-of-the-box cleanups. Batch history, database logs, DMF tables, notifications, ledger journals if you want to get rid of ledger journals, work creation history, mobile warehouses if you're using mobile warehouse data. I saw a comment in the chat just now about archiving. It's next slide. So clean up. But also archive. We've got archiving, which is now officially in public preview. And you can go from version 10.0.30, I want to say 4 or 5, don't remember the version. You can go and start activating in preview archiving mechanism. The archiving mechanism will work by ear. It will need to be done in a specific order. There will be guidance that we'll publish. I don't know if we haven't done a tech talk yet, but there will definitely be a tech talk in this area soon. Watch it. This is super interesting, super cool, and it will kind of free up lots of database size for you. Okay. Also, in order to monitor how you are perform, please backport to AX 2012. Okay, that's a nice one. We don't talk about 2012. I'm just kidding. I get it. Didn't we have like IDMF in 2012? I don't even remember anymore. Anyway, use application insights. There is the ability to hook up the system with your application insights and turn on telemetry. I know it's a bit noisy. I know it's a bit hard to understand what it is, what it isn't. Just try to make the most of this to get the XIF. Yeah, try and make the most of this tool to get at least a first line telemetry of the things that we are publishing. Okay. No, Frederick, I think it was like IDMF or something like that. The IXF is the DMF now. I don't know. Anyway, there used to be a thing. So the other thing that it's very discarded and no one really focus on is the optimization advisors, an out-of-the-box tool with features, and it's a workspace, first of all, allows you to identify issues in module configuration, if there are any clashes, if there are specific batch jobs missing, Docker refs, these kind of things, and suggest best practice for specific modules and identify the data that is obsolete, that needs to be cleaned up. If it's incorrect, it suggests how to perform data fixes and so on. So make the most of this. And even this is an extensible module. Build your own thing. If you, as a partner or customer, you're building your own modules on top of it, use this. This one allows you to create routines that can help you surface guidance based on the configuration data. Okay, so this is a very powerful tool. Any questions? Otherwise, we are moving on to the support part. Inevitably, we greatly improved also the disconnection of warehouse transaction from inventory transaction will improve this game. Yes. Yes, I don't know if Frederick just said something that is on NDA, but yes. Yeah, there will be something in that direction too. Your support is terrible. It's terrible, right? Microsoft support is terrible. That's the thing I keep hearing. I got a feedback in the past, and things sometimes go better, things sometimes go worse. Let me start with very much politics, support policy. Microsoft won't provide fixes to any issue on versions that have reached their end of service. I hope that this sentence now is less harsh and it makes a bit more sense now that I explained the ring logic. Literally, not because we hate you, not because we hate you as a customer, but because technically there's no way for us to check in code into a branch that doesn't exist, okay? Because of the rings logic. Microsoft won't investigate or troubleshoot any issues that you encounter on a version that is older than 3 service updates. Same reason. Rings, we don't have environments to test it. Well, that's a lie. We have them, but we wouldn't have a way to fix the version because the code base is not there anymore, okay? If you encounter an issue on a version that has reached its end of service, the support team is not able to make your case. Again, not because they hate you, because literally the button to select the version is not there, okay? So what are the tips and tricks for a successful engagement with support? Before opening a ticket, always make sure that you're opening a ticket for a serviceable version. If not serviceable, make sure you update to the latest version and test the issue there. Now, what I've seen my customers doing is out of the environment that we haven't talked about the environment strategy, but out of the environment estates they have, which I know it's big, expensive, and so on, they always keep an environment which is 2 scenarios. One is a Contoso, so standard, where they can try and tweak the configuration to make it similar to theirs and test the scenario. Or the other situation is they keep an environment which is always to the latest version. So they don't really test it, but they keep installing the updates, they keep installing the versions, just to make sure they can test something there. That doesn't mean that the version will compile and so on and so forth, but it's just kind of to have the latest version and see if it works, okay? If it's not a functional scenario, so something that you can reproduce on your environment or better on the Contoso environment, try to run the same process on a Contoso or an environment with your data that doesn't have customization, where possible. I'm not saying it's always possible. What is really important about this is we as Microsoft are not going to be able to fix the customizations, not because we don't want to or because we hate you. It's literally because we don't see them. Compared to what we do with the standard code that we literally have access to the code, once what we see in telemetry for customizations are literally like DLL's codes, Luca, name of the partner, underscore or the customer, underscore class blah, 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 dot method. That's all I see. I don't see what it does. I don't see where it goes. I only see the code stack, okay? So it's really hard for me to give you input if I don't see the code. That doesn't mean Sam does the code, but it's more of what we can support is the standard, because we know that and we know the situation. Now, I know sometimes it's not easy to test an environment where customizations are involved, because maybe our key, they cannot be removed, otherwise the process is not consistent anymore. So it wouldn't be a good case scenario to open a support case. Provide traces. Always take traces, review it. If the error doesn't come from a customization, and most of the times it's easily understandable, then open a case, which means we took a trace, we look at the customization. It's not a customization. We work with the partner or we worked internally, no customizations. Microsoft, it's the standard. We have no way to test it on the standard version, but all the homeworks that we could have done, we've done it, okay? Always communicate detailed info when you open a case. Activity IDs, from and to dates, specific form classes, or any identifiable object name. Because we as Microsoft in telemetry have systems, our support have systems where they can do activity ID, from to date, the class or the object, and that helps them reduce the scope. Because, you know, I mentioned operational insights earlier that you can export in your application insight. That is like 1% of the telemetry that we have. So unless we have detailed info, it's literally finding a needle in a haystack, okay? So the more you help us, the more we can help you, okay? And as I said, all of this is not because I want to give you homework every time you open a case. It's just because that if all of this is done before you open a ticket, you will notice an improvement in the experience, because there won't be a back and forth. Try on standard. Oh, Microsoft is asking me to try on a standard. Now I need to go and find a standard. Try without customization. Now I need to go and find without customization. If you open a case and say, I know the process is this, but here's the trace, here's the piece of code, this is the line that is going wrong, is the standard because we checked the partner code doesn't do this, please help us. We have no way to say, have you restarted the machine, right? Because you gave us a lot of info to work with, and the first answer you receive from us can be already a meaningful one, okay? The first response can be already a quality one, okay? While a ticket is in process, keep the conversation open. I've seen this many times. If anything changes, you find a fix. You find a fix to the issue. And I'm talking to partner in this. I know partners don't work on same customers 5 days a week. If you fix the issue on a Tuesday when you work on customer ABC, and next time you work is next Tuesday, just let us know. Because otherwise we're going to keep sending emails, and then it's going to be poor communication, and then there's going to be problems, and then we don't know how to solve the problem. And, you know, everyone is unhappy with the experience, okay? So keep the conversation open, keep the conversation honest. We want to help you, okay? After the ticket has been closed, this is really important. Feedback. Always provide feedback. Good feedback, honest feedback, direct feedback. One thing to mention, which is key about the feedback. The feedback you provide, Dynamics is terrible. I wish you had this feature, doesn't do anything. That's not the right forum. The only feedback that goes into the feedback, that, I hope we're getting better at this, but that really weird spam looking email that we send out, that one is literally just about the support engineer. The poor person that tried to help you and has been bumbles around, that's just about their work. The fact that they cannot work on a serviceable version, as you've noticed, it's not their fault. The fact that they cannot open a bug on the version that you're on because it's not serviceable, it's not their fault. The fact that they cannot understand what is the root of the issue because they don't have all the information that I mentioned on the before opening a ticket, is not their fault. They can only work with the information they have, and they can only work on the version they can work on. And the feedback is about their work, their communication, how responsive they are, how detailed they are, okay? So make sure that the feedback is just about the support engineer. There are other forums where you can say Dynamics is terrible, kill everyone in product group, I don't want to use this anymore. There are other forums, there are plenty of them, right? Support, feedback, not the one, okay? Because as I said, one thing I want to also mention is support engineers are not in charge of deliverables. They're not in charge of timelines for bugs. They have literally no power in that. They can only open it, and then it goes into this big churn of priorities, deliverables, and other things. So support people have no decisional power. They cannot shift wins. They have no power in deciding what goes first, okay? As I said, there are other escalation paths, there are other forums. Talk to Ludwig, talk to Lone. Just there are other escalation paths to try and get speed up help. Okay, but support people don't. Unfortunately, they can only go to the bug and say, "Customer chased again, please help." That's all they can do. Okay, and that reaches the end of my session. So thank you again. I hope it was useful. Yes or no support for this, only for inspiration and demos. Sorry, I just put this on you guys, but it's just, yeah, I get it. Not your job. I just said you were here, Microsoft, so you can use Mare too if you want. So everyone Microsoft is game. So is there any question about this or anything I could possibly help with?
Some comments. I don't see any other questions, so maybe let's ask the audience. Just open your microphone and then
Feel free to ask questions.
just ask a question.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, look up. Yeah, you have your contact details. Yeah, so if you have a question.
Yeah, I'll update it because the last slide just got weird for a second. But yeah, I'll just put my LinkedIn and also my Twitter, but I'll put even my Microsoft email. So if you need to ask me a question, feel free to ask me a question.
Yeah.
Respond most of the times. So for the most so yeah, that was me.
Okay, thanks a lot, Luca, for sharing this. I think this will be helpful for many people. And
Definitely.
for those who could not join, we have the recording and we'll certainly share it.
And you could stop it now, Ludwig.
Yeah, because I don't know how long I have internet. There's a big thunderstorm coming here.